welcome to Incredible Michaelite. It's all about St. Michael's 1858 and the association and the alumni. It has been some incredible journey. Today again we have got some heavyweights. As Sanjay says, not heavyweights on the body side, but heavyweights performance-wise. We have got Javeed Ahmad, we have got Sanjay Pradhan, we have got Shailesh Pathak. So we will introduce you in a bit. Before that, we will take a bit with Banerjee sir on the school part of it. Let's start. Sir, all yours now.
Thank you, Nishant. A very hearty welcome to all of you, the incredible Michaelites. The three incredible Michaelites today are Mr. Javeed Ahmad, Mr. Sanjay Pradhan, and Mr. Shailesh Pathak. So welcome to the trio of incredible Michaelites on what is an exclusively Michaelite zone. So, as per protocol, all right, with the permission of Shailesh, Sanjay, I start off with Javeed. All right, so I have your permission. Right, thank you. So, hello Javeed, welcome once again. Welcome once again to St. Michael's. All right, it's almost
as
if we are back.
Absolute pleasure, and right down nostalgia to connect with St. Michael's. St. Michael's is part of us, yes.
Absolutely, yes. So Javeed, they often, they say that kids do not often remember as much, what you teach them as much as they remember who you are and what you are. And there were so many wonderful who you are's and what you are's among our teachers, right? So Javeed, I know two things that would really stand out, as far as going back to St. Michael's days, going down the memory lane would be number one, yes, who they were who were trying to teach you. A very important part was played by them. And secondly, of course, Cricket has been, a sort of a common, thread among many Michaelites. And then the co-curricular activities, the drama, the plays, the elocution contests, the inter-Jesuit competitions, football, as well as, elocution. So Javeed, with you. So can you now just take us down memory lane, and with especially vis-a-vis the teachers, who actually taught you and how they contributed, and of course the leadership quality, all right, that comes from, yes, being a leader or a captain of the cricket team. So over to you, Javeed. It's all Javeed and the thousands and thousands of Michaelites. Over to you, Javeed.
Yeah, thank you, Amber. St. Michael's, I landed up in St. Michael's in 1971 after spending 5 years in St. Xavier's. As you know, there was a huge migration that happened. The hostel guys went to St. Michael's in 1970, and the day scholars who wanted to shift to St. Michael's were shifted in 1971. So I reached St. Michael's in class 7 in 1971. And this whole journey of being in school cannot start without mention of Reverend Murphy, Father Murphy, as we used to call him. It just cannot, it has to start with Father Murphy, and what a figure he was, what an educationist he was, what a principal he was. I mean, even at that age, the kind of connect one felt with him at almost a personal level, and the kind of connect he had with every student in the school is something that has to be experienced to be believed. I think one has to start with Father Murphy, and one has to also say that when he breathed his last, when I think we were in the 8th, it was a very, very sad day, not only for us, but I think the whole of Patna wept that day. I still remember that in every social gathering that we went to subsequent to that event, we all talked about Father Murphy. So that should be the starting point. Then, of course, there was Father Cox with his with his patpatia, as he used to call it, with his patpatia and his informal library and his and he used to teach us Animal Farm. What a great teacher he was. I mean, he taught us the nuances of the English language. And we didn't know how it happened, but we suddenly realized that we could write and read and understand English. It just happened. It was never taught to us. We just got to know English. And that was the phenomenal power that these guys have, capability that these giants had as teachers. And then before that was Father Zebert, not in St. Michael's, but in St. Xavier's. Another great teacher. And then there was Zubriki. Zubriki was quite a character. I saw him first when he was not in St. Xavier's. I saw him first when we reached St. Michael's, and he used to teach us Old Ramon. Old Ramon was this book about a sheep bearer or some such thing. And Zubriki, with his long nose and his tall gait and a very hunched back personality, but such kind people, very kind, extremely kind people. These were the teachers. I had a fantastic relationship with Father Starr. Father Starr, I think, taught us English in class 8 or something. But more than that, he and I were very close because of cricket. He was the cricket coach, I think, in the years ahead of us, in the years prior to my joining the cricket team. When I was in class 9, I joined the cricket team. Before that, he was the cricket coach, and I think he had played county cricket, so he knew a lot of cricket. Father Starr, yes, he was very good at cricket.
Did Father Starr play cricket?
I think he's played county cricket for Kent.
That's right.
I'm not mistaken.
I didn't know that.
He was very good, and he and I used to talk cricket because I was heavily into cricket, and he knew cricket. And I must share this, that in the year 1973, when Patna did not know anything about what a gun and more cricket bat is, Father Starr went home and brought back a gun and more cricket bat for me. I can tell you, I was the envy of the whole of Patna for having a gun and more cricket bat in class 9. And I kept that bat for the next 6-7 years. It was the dearest thing that I had. And what a great gesture it was. He came back from England and called me and said, "This is the cricket bat for you." But by that time, I had kind of established myself as a cricket player in St. Michael's, which was not a difficult thing to do, actually. But anyways, so Father Starr, yes, I think it's a very special memory that I have. Unfortunately, he passed away very early. But yeah, Father Starr was. Then, of course, there were the other teachers about whom we were gossiping a few minutes ago. There was Robin Francis and Fernandez and the very charming ladies that we had. I can see Sanjay is blushing already. I won't take names, Sanjay, relax. Yeah, but very, very fond memories of some very good teachers. I remember Rocky DeCosta, and I remember Jeff DeCosta. Jeff Saab was another very close associate, and besides being a teacher and all that, because of my games thing, he was very close. Yeah, it was, and I will obviously never stop talking about St. Michael's without talking about two very important guys in my life in St. Michael's. One was Langat. Langat was the guy who used to have the cricket kit, and Ramashish, who used to do the watering of the cricket pitch. Those guys were heavenly. I mean, you asked them for something, and before that, they've already done it. So, a big, God bless to Langat and to Ramashish.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Javeed. In fact, thank you for bringing up, the name of Langatji, because you see, I mean, like before even the boys would collect there, at the ground. I mean, Langat would be alone, or and he would start rolling the pitch.
Yes.
And then, of course, we would join and help him.
Yeah.
But then, he was motivation, absolutely motivation personified, involvement personified.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Javed. Thank you.
So obviously, Rudal was samosa at that time. For 10 paise, I remember we used to get this cone of dal. I don't know what it was called. It's called dal. I remember dal. But 10 paise used to get it. And it was the ultimate. If you could have dal and samosa the same day for the lunch, it was the biggest party that you could have had. So great times that we had and tremendous memories.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Javed. Thank you so much. And thank you for also bringing in. Yeah.
Yeah, Amber, someone just wrote on the message saying that Javed Bhai was an opening batsman and a great fielder at his slips. So the compliment starts to come now only. Good one.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Javed. And thank you for bringing in Father Zebert's name as well.
Yes.
Because you see, he played a very, very pivotal role, especially in Standard 6. He looked after the library, was our English teacher, and therefore was able to, connect the two. As an English teacher, the kind of books that we should be reading, and then Father Cox took it to the other extreme and the other height. Right. Thank you so much. Yes, Sanjay now. Welcome, Sanjay. And as far as, Sanjay is concerned, there are two things that come into my mind. One is, of course, his wonderful, wonderful talent at public speaking, elocution, all right, speech contests and so on. And so that's where, I'll actually begin. Of course, you will definitely have your own memories of teachers, of academics and so on. But in your case, in this particular realm, it was indeed, the child is the father of man. All right. And, your personality, your communication, everything, got wonderfully honed over there. So Father Cleary, I remember, Sanjay, when he was our teacher, he would really, when he would teach us David Copperfield. Yeah. All right. And he would really, and why I'm connecting David Copperfield is because of Ajit. All right. Dr. Ajit Pradhan. All right. So even today, Ajit is addressed as Bacchus. Okay. Hello. Yeah, Bacchus this side. Okay. Because that was the character from David Copperfield. All right. So I'm sure you had, and the informal talk that we had, Father Cleary would make the characters come alive. And I tell you, when I was a student, and I'm sure my batchmates would agree, I won't take the name of the teacher over here, but from Father Zebert, Father Mahoney, all right, Father Cleary, and then 10th and 11th, Father Cox, there was a lull in between. Okay. Now, no point in taking the name of a lull. And we would, feel jealous of our juniors, who were taught by Father Zubriki. Okay. So I think what Father Cleary was for us, Sanjay, Father Zubriki perhaps was for you. So please take us down, all right, the memory lane, and the memory lane with so many fantastic teachers, so many fantastic batchmates, seniors, juniors, and of course, the one and only Father Zubriki. Over to you, Sanjay.
Thanks so much, Amber, and thanks very much to you and to Javed for sharing these precious insights. It brought the old school days alive in the heart. I really appreciated it. So my trip down memory lane in fact, it turns out it's weird what you remember and why you remember. But I remember some of my recollections have to do with elocutions contests that you mentioned, Amber. And I want to recount one just because it has 3 twists in it. So it turns out that one time Father Harland called me into his office and he said that I had to represent St. Michael's in the national competition, all India competition. And I had to go to Darjeeling, I think it was St. John's or someplace, to do this. And so the stakes were high, right? And the first twist came because it turns out that the piece I had selected, for which I had won the school and state competitions, was Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart. Now, it's a bizarre melodramatic piece where the narrator becomes obsessed and later terrified by the physical persona of an old man and his large beady eyes, right? And then he goes crazy and in fact even kills him and then melts in front of police prosecutors. It was a bizarre tale, but it was melodramatic and made for good elocutions. Now, the second twist came because Father Harlan designated Father Zubricki as my coach for this. And you mentioned it, Amber, and you mentioned it, Javed. So what happened is, for those of you who remember, and Javed already referred to it, Father Zubricki was a formidable physical persona in his own right. He was, as Javed said, tall, hunched back, he had a long hooked nose, and he had very large eyes. And the other thing was with Father Zubricki is his passion in life was to help you make it come alive, as he said. You know, you have to make this thing come alive. So what happened is in the summers, I had to practice before the national competition, and I would troop down the library of the school. And in those days, in the summers, the library would be very dimly lit because they were saving on electricity. And there would be Father Zubricki towering over me. He's quite a personality physically. I mean, he's delightful, but he was quite a personality. And he would roar at me saying, make it come alive, feel the passion, feel the fear, feel the terror in this narrator's thing. And I started, living it, so I started feeling the terror, started feeling the pressure, feeling the fear. It got to the point that I started having visions and nightmares that I was the crazy narrator. Father Zubricki was the old man with the big beady eyes. It got to the point where my mother forbade me from practicing this piece at home because she felt it was so real and it would scare the hell out of her. But I share it in jest, of course. Father Zubricki was delightful, but I share it with a serious purpose. Father Zubricki gave me the gift of authenticity. The lesson he gave me is whatever you say it from the heart, feel it. And this piece was entitled Telltale Heart. In my professional job now, so many years later, I have to speak in front of, a lot of my work is public speaking, which Amber, you referred to. Hundreds of people, whether it be heads of states at the UN, that's my job, I had to do that. But I never look at a note, and some of the roots of that come from that making it come alive. Let me close with a final third twist. There is a third twist to this story, which is that, and with Father Zubricki, which is that 3-4 years later, by some twist of destiny, I landed up at Harvard University for my undergraduate education. And we were sitting around roommates, and I used to feel I was the only Indian at Harvard at that time as an undergraduate. And I used to feel a bit aloof, not knowing how much I shared with other friends. And I was sitting with my roommates, freshman year, as we call it in the US, roommates, and we were looking at each other's yearbooks. And there was a picture of Father Zubricki. And my American roommate, Paul, immediately says, hey, that is Father Zubricki. And I said, how do you know that is Father Zubricki? How do you know Father Zubricki? And he says, that's because he taught me English. I said, but he taught me English. It turns out that after Father Zubricki left St. Michael's Patna, he went to Detroit, Michigan, taught my roommate Paul English, and then the two of us converged at Harvard College. And one of the courses we took was English. Now, I share this again, it was a remarkable coincidence, but I share this also to make a serious point. Father Zubricki was a bridge. He was a bridge for me for St. Michael's Patna to Harvard College. And just like that, I felt my excellent teachers in St. Michael's and the quality of education I had were that bridge. It was a bridge that tied me from St. Michael's Patna to Harvard College. And several people have asked me, it was very competitive, it was very rigorous. It was all of those things. But the high rigor and quality of education I had in St. Michael's really helped smoothen that journey and be a bridge for me from here to an Ivy League institution. And in many ways, I'm here on this call just to pay tribute to my teacher in my school. Back over to you, Amber.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sanjay. Thank you. Yes, that's very true. In fact, the kind of connect and the kind of not only national but international connect that, these fathers provided us It was absolutely splendid and remarkable, and as epitomized in your story and your recollections. Now, over to Shailesh now. So, welcome, Shailesh. And of course, as I said, in Shailesh's case, like in the cases of so many other Michaelites, uh, the Arun Singhs, the Siddharth Sinhas, the Sujit Sinhas, and there's so many of them. Well, Shailesh belongs to that particular legion, absolutely. So in his case, I'm sure it was not just that child is the father of man. It is actually child is the grandfather of man as far as academics, as far as academic pursuits and excellence, are concerned. Because Shailesh was, my dear Michaelites, he was the topper of the school in 1981. All right. And Shailesh, I would like, you to just also talk about, the people who contributed there, towards your holistic development, that Sanjay was just talking about, and very wonderfully exemplified in the persona of Javeed. So, yes, how was Shailesh the child, the grandfather of what Shailesh is today? Over to you, Shailesh.
Thank you, Amber Bhai. It's a tough act to follow with Javeed Bhai and Sanjay. But let me assure everyone that topping the school was as much a surprise for me as for anyone else. That was in class 12 in 1981. And of course, 1978 was our class 10. I think if you really look at 5 ways that school was phenomenal for us, I would say the first is friends. And many friends are watching this today as we speak. The second is learning in classrooms. The third is actually playing and learning by playing. The fourth is partying and eating. All young boys love partying and eating. And the fifth, and it must be mentioned, was adolescence and coming of age. So let me begin with friends. 2 of my very, very close friends from school, Tejinder Bhatti and Niyaz Khan, in 2015, we specifically planned a 2-week vacation in Europe. ऐसी चड्डी बड्डी दोस्ती जो है वो कहाँ से मिलेगी? Akari Vishwadeep and Navneet Samayar and I went to Ranikhet and Sariska. ऐसी दोस्ती स्कूल के अलावा और कहीं नहीं मिल सकती. Eating Rudal samosas at that time for 25 paisa each, having a golden ice cream, and specifically Spring Fair में कितना मजा आता था. Spring Fair was something all of us used to look forward to, including the visitors from outside. Playing, I was in the football team, and you mentioned langat. वो हाफ टाइम में जब लंगट नींबू लाता था ना, और वो दौड़ते दौड़ते हाल बुरा होता था, और नींबू सीधे हम लोग वो मुंह पे रखते थे, तो कितना that was like heaven. Cricket, I was getting into the team, but पाटलिपुत्र कॉलोनी में हमारी एक टीम थी विलो विजर्ड्स, उसके लिए हम मैच खेलने चले गए, and I did not play for the school team. So Harland next morning in the assembly called my name out, and there I was quaking and shivering in his office after the assembly, and the punishment was you shall not play for the school because you went and played for a private club. The swimming pool, we went back recently. At that time the swimming pool used to be so big, so large, वो पूरी length और breadth करने में ही हवा निकल जाती थी. And now that we've all grown up, the swimming pool is as memorable as any time. But in classes, and Amber Bhai would know, Father Harland was our principal, and he actually came from Ara, and he had good Bhojpuri as well. वो हमनी के कभी-कभी भोजपुरी में बतियावत रहन. In Hindi, of course. But my personal favorites were Ms. Mary MacDonald, who was our class teacher in class 10. And I still remember her moral science classes under the trees. And Mrs. Gauri Ishwaran, who taught us English. And all marks, full marks to her for inculcating this love for learning. And we had our share of amazing characters, including teachers who would say, take an iron rod of any metal, both of you 3 come in, and open the window and let the atmosphere come in. So ये सब जो यादें हैं ये भूलेंगे नहीं. And of course, I mentioned adolescence. NDA was a special acronym for us, and definitely the best girls in the world were in NDA. And among other education, हम लोग सामूहिक पठन पाठन करते थे पुस्तकों का फुटबॉल के ग्राउंड में बैठ के. That was also part of the highlights. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Shailesh. Thanks for those very, very sweet memories. And, I think, we have covered quite a bit today. And as far as the teachers, the fathers were concerned, and the kind of, all-round holistic education that actually nowadays has become a buzzword. But then St. Michael's had it all in those days, right from, I think, 1950s onward, right from the time it was established. And we had seen it all, we had experienced it all. Okay, right. Thank you so much, Shailesh. Now, Nishant. Well, Nishant is now going to do, as I always say, he's my student. He was my student, but I say he will do the adult stuff. I have done the under 18 stuff. So over to you, Nishant.
But you are the hero always, sir.
That is the profession.
You are always that center point, hero. People look up to you because, the school part you take is so fantastically well. Thank you, Amba, sir. So I will come to the part of the professional achievements. So we'll start with Javeed Bhaiya, 1975 batch. He is a 1984 IPS officer, UP cadre, a school captain, retired as the DGP of the UP, served in Ministry of Home Secretary for 2 years and CBI for 12 years. Prestigious President's Police Medal for Distinguished Service in 2008. And Police Medal for Meritorious Service in 2000. So something brilliant. Welcome, sir. So Javeed, just quickly, we want to understand 1989 to 1993. UP, as known to be very sensitive as far as the communal issues are concerned, was really very disturbed. And you have served on several positions in the UP. We would like to know how did you used to manage those communal issues at your respective positions?
Yeah, Nishant, those were the late 90s, or rather the late 80s and the early 90s, up to the mid 90s, were very difficult times in Uttar Pradesh. We were at the center of the communal storm, if I can say so. Ayodhya is here. It's 125 kilometers from where I'm sitting right now. And the whole country was in turmoil, and so was Uttar Pradesh. I used to be SP of various districts, mostly in eastern Uttar Pradesh at that time. I became a specialist in eastern Uttar Pradesh for some reason. I got posted to Balia and to Banaras, to Jaunpur and stuff like that, which is all close to Bihar. And they thought that I'll kind of gel with the people over there, which is a fact. I mean, the very fact that I could speak a smattering of Bhojpuri and understand almost 80% of Bhojpuri gave me a huge advantage as compared to someone who was maybe from South India who wouldn't understand. Anyway, so yes, those were difficult times. And I think the most important lesson that all those years gave me as a police officer was the importance of credibility. I think Shailesh has also been an administrator. He would second me that getting credibility from the people and from public representatives is probably the most essential thing, probably the most difficult thing. And for me, actually, it was the most easy thing because I had no axe to grind. And if you have no axe to grind, then you do what is right. And if you do what is right, then everyone realizes that you're doing what is right, and then credibility just happens. So I think that was one very important lesson that I learned for myself, which I was able to use much more as the years went by and I got into slightly more senior positions. But yes, I think credibility and the ability to look 5 steps ahead like a chess player. It's always a cat and mouse game in those very communal times. trying to outthink the other guy, what he's going to do next, what mischief is going to happen, and try to outthink him and be prepared for it. So I think yes, it was challenging. It was frustrating. It was also challenging. But now that I look back, it was very, very satisfying. Yeah, thanks.
Superb here. So as we all know, this is the second instance where a Michaelite who has served as the DGP of a state has come on this platform of Incredible Michaelites. The first one was Mr. Abhyanand, who came on the second webinar of the Incredible Michaelites. Just to connect that, Javeed bhaiya, there is something called Bihar model of Abhyanand, and which related to the current shootout of Vikas Dubey, the current incident which was mentioned in Economic Times last week. Can you just throw some light on that, bhaiya?
Yeah, in fact, the Economic Times article that I wrote last week about the rule of law and how it has become something which is under huge attack right now in our country, unfortunately. So I wrote about the Abhyanand model about the Abhyanand model in that context. So basically, what Abhyanand Saab did was that he identified, people who needed to be prosecuted for their criminal activities. He identified a handful in every district and coordinated and tied up with the judiciary and with the prosecutor and with the police, and ensured that everyone who deserved to be in jail landed up in jail rather than be, strutting around the streets of Bihar and generally causing more law and order problems. And the result was that, as you all know, that if someone is convicted, A, he cannot get government contracts in his name, and B, he cannot fight elections. So if there's a neta who's convicted, then what is the fun? He can't get theka and he can't get neta. He can't become a neta. So the whole idea being a gunda is defeated. So I think he kind of hit at the very root, attacked the very root. He was extremely successful, and I'm talking about big dads, big criminals who were MPs at that time and MLAs at that time, who landed up behind bars and not only lost their liberty and freedom, but also lost their membership to the houses of legislature, either in Patna or in Delhi. So that was an extremely good model. It required non-glamorous, hard work behind the scene, which ultimately every success ultimately depends on that kind of thing, and not on the glamorous part that people see. So yeah, that was the Abhyanand model, and I'm really, really thankful to Abhyanand for having done this so that it can be shown to everyone across the policing community in this country that you don't have to go around knocking off people to make things improve.
Superb, Bhaiya. Very good, Bhaiya. We'll come back to you again, Bhaiya. Let me go to Mr. Sanjay Pradhan. Sanjay Pradhan, currently CEO of Open Government Partnership. And just all the Michaelites should know, and we have to be very proud of, because Sanjay Bhaiya is the youngest. He has the record of youngest VP of Vice President of World Bank, has served World Bank for 30 years, and second to the president, holding 3 portfolios, which is not small, which is huge. So welcome to this session of Incredible Michaelites, Sanjay Bhaiya. So we are really thankful that you connected at this hour from the US, and it makes us really proud of this as well. Sanjay Bhaiya, so my question straight to you is, with all these performances at the World Bank, your thing in the World Bank started from the root where you started from, that is Bihar. Your TED Talk, which had over 1 million views, talks about childhood experiences in Bihar, which shaped your career and cause at the World Bank at anti-corruption. Can you tell us about this journey?
Thank you, Nishant. Thank you so much. So yes, the roots of my journey started in Bihar and have continued through. It has been a reference point for me. And so indeed, just to make it light, because this is a light webinar, I can share a light story with which I begin my TED Talk. So the story is, it begins with Patna. I was 6 years old and I returned home from school. I found a cart full of the most delicious sweets at our doorstep, right? And so my brothers and I dug in, because those days we couldn't afford those sweets, neither in the quality or quantity that we found on the cart. And just then my father came home, and he was livid. We couldn't understand why. And I still remember how we cried when the cart full of the most delicious sweets was pulled away from us. And years later, I understood why my father got so upset. That's because those sweets were a bribe from a contractor. My father was in the public works department. He had to build roads, and this was a bribe. And my father was a stickler against corruption. And I saw him, no temptation, no threat, no harassment would budge him. And that had a deep imprint in terms of the journey starting in Bihar, Nishant, as you said. There was one more touch point with Bihar, which was quite significant. So I was in college, I was an undergraduate in the US, and I was homesick. So I decided to apply for a dissertation grant, and I got it, and I had to study rural poverty in India. And I chose to go to Muzaffarpur district in Bihar to study rural poverty. And for about several months, I traveled across 12 villages in Bihar. I went from village, household to household. And the methodology was to ask people what they ate to calculate calories. And I saw truly abject poverty. There were people who had no food to eat. And at the same time, and no government programs that were supposed to benefit them, whether it was in agriculture or food or anything, were touching them or reaching them. And yet when I went back to Patna, I saw food and fodder scams, because of which leaders were basically looting the very money that was supposed to benefit these people. And they were looting the state behind closed doors. That made it my journey. And so when I joined the World Bank, I wanted to make a difference. And one of my first projects was on Uganda, which was a repeat of the Bihar story. And what happened is that I prepared a big loan. It was $100 million for Uganda. And yet after the loan was disbursed, I went to the villages of Uganda. And I saw there were health clinics without doctors and medicines, schools without teachers and textbooks, and it was Bihar all over again. And that started my campaign inside the World Bank, because the World Bank lends a very large amount of money to governments. Last year, it lent $75 billion to governments. And I started to say that we needed stronger transparency and citizen oversight in these resources. That was not sexy or fashionable in those days, because the institutional incentives was to lend large amounts of money. But then there were a series of openings. The president of the World Bank, then in 1996, Jim Wolfenson, made a famous Cancer of Corruption speech. Next year, I got asked to be the principal author of a World Development Report, the first time on governance and anti-corruption. I became the first director for governance, where we made significant shifts. We led the first World Bank's governance and anti-corruption strategy, where the World Bank's own lending and grants would be used to build government systems for anti-corruption and transparency. And then later, when I was in the World Bank Institute as vice president, I pushed the envelope further to the World Bank typically deals with governments. And I was pushing that the World Bank should also work with non-governmental actors that can oversee government. And so we led the first financial instrument of the bank, which gave grants to civil society organizations, which could be the voice of citizens, which could amplify the voice of the voiceless to see whether, in fact, they got the benefits from government and so on. And so that the villagers, whether they are in Bihar or in Uganda, their voice is amplified. So in many ways, you can see it's a journey that began with Bihar and has kept getting punctuated all through, has been the thread or the spine running through. Back over to you, Nishant.
Yes, superb. Fantastic. Bhaiya, I'll have to come back to you again, but let me go back to Shailesh Bhaiya, who has got some relation to World Bank also, because he was from the government assignment side for World Bank at some time as well. So I'll come back to you, but let me come back to Shailesh Bhaiya. Shailesh Bhaiya is, again, as told by Amber sir, he was the topper of 1981 batch of the ISC class, and an MBA from IIM Calcutta, and UPSC attempt, on the first attempt becomes the IAS. As he's the IAS, he served in the MP cadre for good 17 years, and he also completed an LLB. So I'm still, unsure that what is left out. He has done everything, which is fantastic, makes us very proud. Bhaiya, we want to understand from you, we spoke about this some time back on, that your role in governing new state coming out of MP, and you receive appreciation letter for innovative public deliveries, including Vikas Express model for improving cutting-edge governance. So can you just throw some light on this?
Thanks, Nishant. First of all, for setting this up. Thank you. And yes, there is a link between what I learned in school and what I actually did while I was in government for half my career. The other half has been in the private sector. Now, and going back to what Sanjay said, look, our generation has seen bad governance at close quarters, right? So we all want to work towards good governance. And whether it is Javeed Bhai in the police or me in the IAS, how could we make the cutting edge of government better? Was the question. And remember, governments don't get it because the chief secretary gets better. Governments get better because wo sarkari school mein the school teacher starts teaching well. And the hand pump mechanic repairs the hand pump well and in time. So this is the cutting edge of governance. So using my MBA concepts, I said management by exception is the best. So as district collector, I used to take all the district officers in a bus, like our a blue bus in St. Michael's. So I used to take all the district officers in a bus. The only other car used to be the collector's vehicle, which used to follow the bus. And we used to say that there are 8 blocks in the district. Such and such block we will visit on such and such date. There are 200 villages in the block. We used to have a map of the block, and in the morning we used to pick out, while traveling in the bus, one village that we would go to. So it was completely a surprise. And all of us would spend half the day in that village. And then in the second half, we'd go to another village picked out of the map. So 2 villages we used to go to, and 200 villages used to get better. So suddenly, teachers who had not, gone out to teach started taking their bicycle out to go to their school. And this was just management by exception. So hardly 5% of the villages we went to, 100% got better. But the other point was, and I left government in 14, 15 years ago. The other point was Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh were 2 states in 2000. So by lottery, I went to Chhattisgarh. And it was such a fascinating experience. Sanjay talked about governance systems. It was like being in India in 1947. You could decide how your state would run itself. And the first thing we said was, we do not need so many government corporations. So the only 2 things that the state would focus on was good governance and good infrastructure. And just to give an example, we said that buses are best run by private sectors, which has better incentives. So I still remember we opened up the bus transport sector, which was a monopoly, to the private bus operators. And within 3 years, we had 10 times the number of buses जो हम सरकार में roadways bus चलाते थे. And one of the challenges, of course, was giving a VRS to over 2,000 people, 2,437 people. And this was essentially a skill I learned at St. Michael's, going and talking and explaining. These people had not got their wages for the last 3 years. We made sure they had a very generous severance package. So things can be done in government. There is a famous line that I quote always: where there is a will, there is a way. Where there is no will, there is survey and committee and task force. Right.
Brilliant, Bhaiya. So I'll come to you again, Bhaiya. I'll go to Javeed Bhaiya once more. Javeed Bhaiya, as you were the DG of Professional Armed Constabulary, DG Fire Services, you served in 3 different functions before superseding to become the DG of the UP. We would like to know the journey of yours as the DG of the UP.
Yeah, thanks, Nishant. Being DG of UP most, I mean, in the IPS in UP, the day you reach Uttar Pradesh after training, you are taken to the DG's office, and you're all decked up with all your uniform and stuff, and you reach the office and you have to wait half an hour before the DG gives you an audience, and that day the ball is set rolling. To ultimately going and sitting in that chair was, to anyone, would be a big thing. So at the personal level, it was definitely a very big, satisfying and very uh, proud moment. I mean, just to put it in perspective, UP has a police force of about 225,000 people in uniform. That's Sawa Do Lakh. And the population of UP is 22 million. 220 million, I'm sorry, those are these million, 22 crore. And I say this because of something, just an anecdotal thing. When I was DG, there was this problem in a place called Mathura, where some people attacked the police party, and there was two of my boys died. And there was a huge uproar in the national media. So BBC was interviewing me about what had happened. I was telling them such and such thing happened, and now we've got things under control. But sitting in London, whoever that was, that lady, she said that we are told that things are out of control in Uttar Pradesh. I said, ma'am, yes, things were bad at that particular time in a particular area. But to put things in perspective, the distance between Lucknow and Mathura is the same as between Paris and London. And the population of Uttar Pradesh is the same as France, Germany, UK, and a few more countries combined. So kindly be slightly more generous in in judging us. After that, she didn't ask me any of those snide questions. She was more interested in how big UP was and how difficult it is to be the head of the police here. But yeah, being the police chief of such a large state in UP with all its problems, with all its sub-regional problems, Eastern UP has its own problems, West, Bundelkhand, they all have different problems. But once again, it was about having vision, having a very clear vision about what you want, having a very good team. You can't run such a big enterprise without having a very good team. You select the right people, give them the freedom that is required, and let them do their job, and be ready to take the flak for what they do wrong, but be ready to be generous in letting them have the accolades when things go right. I think those are just thumb rules. And to go back to what school taught us, I think the lessons of moral science that were taught in school were probably the most important guidelines that I had throughout my professional career. Of being correct, of being humble, of being empathetic, of being honest, and that kind of stuff. That those moral science booklets that we used to get in school, and they taught us. I never had the need to use algebra in my life. I never ever use physics or whatever of any metal. Or anything. I think moral science and English are the two things that from school that I use every day. Yeah, and those things were very, very solidly ingrained in my mind and in my personality from my days in St. Michael's. Yeah, thank you.
Superb. But yeah, did you got a chance to play cricket sometime as the professional as well?
Well, I played cricket for my college, St. Stephen's, and at that time, St. Stephen's College had a team that included two people who were playing India, Arun Lal and Kirti Azad, and then there were 6-7 guys who were playing Ranji Trophy for different states. Right. So that was big time, and our traditional rivalry was against Hindu College that had Anil Walson at that time. Anil Walson, remember the guy who was in the Indian team for '83 World Cup.
Yeah, the only person who didn't play it, but he was a part of the World Cup 1983.
Yes. I see that Ravi Bhai in Delhi is asking me about my golf. My golf is all stuck up, Ravi Bhai. There's no golf because of the lockdown. So
Let's hope that things should come back soon. Thank you, Javed Bhaiya. Sanjay Bhaiya, I'll again come to you. As OGP was, founded by Obama and other head of the states, and you are currently the CEO of Open Government Partnership. We would like to understand your role as that 78 countries and 2 billion, all across. Can you just elaborate on this?
Thanks, Nishant. So while I was at the World Bank, I got recruited to be the CEO of this partnership. It was launched at the United Nations by Obama and other heads of states in 2011, and so it's like the World Bank and UN, except it's much younger, but it has grown. It's the fastest growing multilateral. So in 9 years, 78 countries have joined, which is what you were mentioning, Nishant. They're representing around 2 billion people and thousands of civil society organizations. And the objective of the partnership is to, in the words of the founder, one of the founders, former US President Obama, is to ensure that government truly serves its citizens rather than itself. And the way it does it, and Shailesh mentioned it, Javed mentioned it, is about good governance. And the way the platform works is that every country that joins, reformers from government, the kinds that Shailesh and Javed were talking about, work with citizens and civil society and businesses to commit to concrete actions to make governments transparent and participatory to citizens and others, and citizens and others oversee and shape government. But so to bring it to life and to give you something concrete that you can hang it on, let me bring it to life by giving you an example from COVID-19, which all of us, of course, are dealing with on the curbing contagion part. But, as we are so preoccupied with curbing contagion, understandably, there is another phenomenon having to do with COVID-19, which is taking place, which has gone under the radar screen, so to speak. And it is that we are looking at the largest stimulus and safety net packages in our lifetime since World War II, that each country is implementing across my 78 countries. G20 countries, the size is 11% of GDP. Right here in the US, it's $2.5 trillion. South Africa is 10% of GDP. Germany is 30% of GDP. This is massive amounts of money that are going in to revive the economy. And there's a lot at stake. The stake is to protect millions of lives and livelihoods. So these are big programs. The stakes are high to procure medical equipment, PPEs, to provide safety nets to vulnerable groups, to protect SMEs. And yet the risk of corruption, mismanagement, and inefficiency is humongous. So what we are doing in our partnership, the Open Government Partnership, is we have created a campaign where we are asking governments to disclose transparently COVID-19 spending to COVID-19 contracts, beneficiaries of safety net programs, who's supposed to get it. And we are empowering citizens, businesses, and civil society to monitor this, follow the money to ensure it reaches. So just to give you an example of the kinds of things we do, one of the big things when you have this kind of money, corruption happens with contracts, procurement contracts, which are given to people. And we have seen in New York, for instance, that $69 million contract was given for PPEs, for ventilators, to a politically connected person. And the money never reached, there was not a single ventilator that was delivered. Brazil is investigating $100 million of ventilators for a Chinese company. And what we have in Uruguay, in Ukraine, in Paraguay, in Colombia, is the opposite, using our platform, where they disclose the contracts transparently using open data standards so citizens can search them. And citizens can report violations if they didn't get the services, if they didn't get the benefits. In Ukraine, it saved $1 billion in 2 years earlier, and there's been a marked reduction in corruption. So this is the kind of work we do, Nishant, which is in the context of COVID right now in the Philippines, they have a $4 billion safety net program to reach 18 million people. How do we ensure that the most vulnerable get this? We are working with groups, civil society groups in the Philippines, in Africa, to follow the money, to ensure that the most vulnerable groups, their voices are amplified and they actually get the money. It's just a quick introduction of this. Back to you, Nishant.
Amazing, Bhaiya, amazing. Superb. I'll go to Shailesh Bhaiya. Shailesh Bhaiya, Shailesh Bhaiya has been a member of Finance and Infrastructure Task Force of the Global G20 groupings business community. He has also been a part of BRICS Business Council Infrastructure Working Group. Fantastic. Bhaiya, we would like to know your journey from the government side of it and then to the corporate side. Can you please elaborate this? Are you on mute, Bhaiya?
Mute. In my case, it was after my MBA. Actually, I joined ICICI and I worked there for 4 years. And just to put things in perspective, I joined 2 years after Chanda Kochar. And then, of course, in 1990, I joined the IAS. So it was more a return to the private sector than a shift from the IAS to the private sector.
Right.
And I went back to the ICICI group doing private equity investing in infrastructure. The reason was very simple. The IAS is a great job. I think for anyone who wants to do good, it's probably one of the best jobs in the world. I wanted to focus on infrastructure in cities. And that's why I decided that 17 years into the service, I'd get out and get back. So since then, I have been doing infrastructure and developing smart cities. I went around the world raising money for an Indian infrastructure fund. And I still remember I went to Brunei, and the Brunei Investment Authority team heard out our pitch. You know, Sanjay, how it is, the pitch book. And finally they said, if we invest in your fund, can you get us to meet Shah Rukh Khan? So that's when I realized that the soft power that India and Bollywood in particular has, whether it is Raj Kapoor and Awara Hoon, the song is so popular across Asia, or Amitabh Bachchan, and particularly Shah Rukh Khan. So in Indonesia, there was this party where the singer, an Indonesian singer, saw me and started singing a song from, what is it? He started the first line looking at me, and then I finished this song. And in Turkey, this flight attendant told me that when they were in school, they used to bunk school and go watch Shah Rukh Khan movies. It's only when they grew up that they realized that patawing girls was not as simple as it looked in the Shah Rukh movies. But coming back, so infrastructure. I'm currently CEO of this company that has developed the Hyderabad Metro and has co-developed the Bangalore Airport and has done 3 seaports and many highways and urban infrastructure. So how can India get world-class infrastructure? Just to take a simple example, high-speed rail. So you go and travel on the Très Grand Vitesse in France. You go and travel on the Shinkansen in Japan. And you travel from Beijing to Tianjin, and you wonder how India can get there. And that's what we are working on making happen by 2025. We will have the high-speed rail in India. We will have private passenger trains with executive class services and passenger comfort. So this is the kind of future that we are working towards. And I'm definite. So the kind of change that we have seen in our country in the last 20 years, we will see more change in our country in the next 5 to 7 years. That's all I'll say right now. Thank you, Nishant.
Great, Bhaiya. Superb journey. So just to, with your wordings of Awara Hoon, in the last webinar when we had Yashovardhan Azad with us, so he was actually welcomed on to a police function in Pakistan where they played Awara Hoon when he was coming. So just to mention that. Second, Rajiv Soni just message saying that Mary McDonnell started her career with St. Joseph's and she worked there for a decade before she came to St. Michael's. So some good. So we are very happy because people participate in the entire, incredible Michaelites and put in things, which is fantastic. Even Deepak Jha Bhaiya wants to come on the panel to ask personally. So we'll try to sort out if we can do that. Before that, we'll come to the last part of the webinar. We'll go to each panelist and we'll just ask them your 2 lines for the incredible Michaelites and the alumni as well. So I'll start with Javeed Bhaiya.
Thanks, Nishant. I think this point was made by Shailesh, that the friendship that one makes in school, or rather all of us made in school when we were in St. Michael's, is something that we all need to really, really cherish. Those friendships are things that will see us through good times and also see us through bad times. And those friendships are made without any strings attached. I mean, the World Bank gives money, but has a lot of strings attached, Sanjay. But the friendship from St. Michael's is always without any strings. And it is very different from the kind of friends that you make when you're in your professional life. Professional life friendships are more acquaintances, a more transactional thing. But school friendships are based on innocence, on the joy of just knowing someone, on just the sharing that you had together in those 7, 8 years, 10 years that you spent in school. And those times can give you so much of de-stressing. I think the best of yoga cannot give you that kind of de-stressing that an evening with friends and talking about the anecdotes of school will give you, because then you become a child for those few hours and all your worries go away. And I think we should all really cherish it and try to have these platforms like the one that Nishant has made to happen, so that it can happen more frequently. It can happen many more times every year, and not wait for COVID to arrive before we start looking at our friends. Thank you.
Yes, I totally agree, Javeed Bhaiya. COVID has just been, one of the small reasons to start, but I can ensure you this will go on and on and on, because Michaelites are just not someone next door. They're much bigger, much incredible. Sanjay Bhaiya, your point to the incredible Michaelites and the alumni.
So
I'm just butting in, Nishant. One very quick question asked by Rajiv Soni, all right, of Sanjay. Sanjay, are you writing another book? That's what Rajiv asks you. Quickly.
These days people don't have that much time to read books, so I'm much more in the op-ed articles route. I'm writing one right now on the COVID-19 stimulus and
nice.
I just did one on also on, we call it open response, open recovery. If anyone is interested, it's on COVID response and recovery. If you're interested, happy to share it. Just going back to your question, Nishant, very much wholeheartedly endorse and embrace what Javeed and Shailesh earlier said. The innocence of school friends, is so precious. Our roads may have diverged in so many different branches over time, but when you get together, that timeless sense of being together in school, that innocence. And what I find fascinating is that our physical appearances may even have changed a lot, but when you see your school friends, you can almost see in the mirror what they used to look like. And that is just priceless, that innocence where, devoid of political ideology, wherever you landed up, you can relive, as Javeed said so eloquently, that old time. I did want to add one other point, Nishant, on Incredible Michaelites, and really congratulate you and Amber for this platform. And it's really great to see remarkable achievements that we have seen Michaelites, accomplish. I did want to take that opportunity to also salute so many other school friends who I know who are the metrics may not necessarily, the metrics in what we celebrate here are inescapably professional achievements and job titles. But I know so many friends who have achieved so much in taking care of whatever life threw at them. Whether it was, I know one friend, I'm not obviously mentioning anyone by name, devoted his whole life taking care of elderly parents, and other types of challenges that life presents itself. So the metrics that we end up celebrating, understandably but inadvertently, become metrics of professional achievement and job titles. But I wanted to salute so many of my friends who I know who have had incredible perseverance and patience in dealing with whatever cards were dealt with them and being of service to their family, to society in different ways that they did. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to salute the silent majority as well. Back over to you, Nishant.
Great, Sanjay Bhaiya. Shailesh Bhaiya, again to you on the incredible Michaelites and the alumni.
First things first, I told you that I'm wearing a St. Michael's t-shirt, which we got at an alum meet. So there are three things I'd like to say. And before that, younger and smarter people currently in school know much more than we did at their age, right? So they can Google almost everything that we were taught. And therefore, the focus is on reading and learning and giving back, I'd say. So, Father Cox and his casual library, or the St. Michael's Library, or the British Council Library near Gandhi Maidan, that inculcated a love for reading in all of us. और मेरा तो सरनेमी पाठक है, लेखक और पाठक का तो बड़ा अंतरंग संबंध है. So reading is something which is a lifelong interest that all of us would benefit by. Learning never stops. I make it a point to learn at least one and a half hours every single day. Whether you're at class 9 or whether you're 50, I think learning never stops. And the most important thing, particularly for people now like us, is giving back. And a whole lot of us who've seen international institutions know how strong the alum network is and how strongly it gives back to the institution. I wish, this initiative is a great initiative. I wish that we could professionalize our alumni. There are so many high achievers who are Michaelites. I wish we could put together a system whereby we could give back to the school. We could make things happen for the students. And India today is very different. A simple example is the cricket captains we've had over the years. Ek zamane mein Bishan Singh Bedi was the captain. Then we had Kapil Dev, sudden aggression or sudden confidence. And then we had, a nice Sachin Tendulkar and an even more powerful Sourav Ganguly. Everyone remembers that. And now we have Virat Kohli. So the youth of India are changing. Those of us who need to learn from the youth can start by giving back to our school.
Yeah, Shailesh, I won't let you.
Pardon me, you missed MS Dhoni.
MS Dhoni in between.
How could I miss MS Dhoni? MS Dhoni made us believe in ourselves.
And let me tell you, Shailesh Bhaiya, me and Ambar sir can talk on MS Dhoni for hours.
So I'm so sorry. What a journey from Bishan Bedi to Sourav Ganguly to Dhoni to Virat Kohli. India is changing before us.
I was just joking. It's a serious sort of joke.
Yeah, totally agree. So basically, if we talk about Michaelites, we can see even after 25 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, we still get a chance to meet someone. We are still in touch with our school classmates, which is a great stuff. That's why we are called incredible. That's what I think always. In a webinar today, let me tell everyone that we have got people from Washington, Lucknow, Chennai, Bangalore, Delhi. So one platform with 3 panelists, we are here from 5 different locations, which is fantastic and which is actually incredible. So thanks everyone. Thanks Javeed Bhaiya for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah.
Thanks Sanjay Bhaiya. You were incredible.
Thank you very much, Nishant. Great to connect with everyone. Lovely to hear from all of you.
And Shailesh Bhaiya, you were fantastic. And I still don't have words to complete your achievements in life.
और आप सबको बहुत धन्यवाद, विशेष रूप से निशांत जी और अंबर सर को. Thank you.
And Ambar sir has always been fantastic. Thanks, Ambar.
What about Kolkata? A participant from Kolkata.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So thanks everyone. Stay tuned. Webinar 8, which is on 2nd of August, We have got Shafi Alam sir, 1969 batch. We have got Arun Singh sir, 1971 batch. And we have got Mr. Amarjeet Sinha, 1975 batch, joining us on the webinar 8. So stay tuned, and thank you everyone for joining at Incredible Michaelites. It's all about St. Michael's 1858. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.